Hey, good morning. Today is Monday. Welcome to a new week. Hopefully, this is going to be a productive and profitable week for you. My name is Daniel McCrane with McCrane Associates, and small business owners choose to work with us to increase their profitability, expand their scalability, and solidify their legacy. And we guarantee our work in those areas. So today, let's talk about something important in business. If you've got a partner that you're working with, or you're contemplating working with a partner, let's talk about buy sell agreements. So this is something that I think a lot of business owners just think, maybe they're best friends and they get in business together thinking, hey, this will be great. We'll work it out. We've always been best friends. And they don't think about what are some of the issues that could come up as a result of working together in business. Now, one of the most important things that I always think of, because I think about exit planning, that's what I focus on. I think about what's going to happen if one of the partners passes away or becomes disabled and can't work in the business. I talk about that a lot. It will be important in those situations that there's some kind of disability insurance or life insurance, even to help with that. Otherwise, what happens is your partner's spouse, most likely, if they're married, your partner's spouse ends up owning their portion of the business. And so now you're in business with your partner's spouse rather than your partner. Maybe the spouse has no interest. Maybe the spouse doesn't have the right skills or the ability to function in business, and maybe that's fine. Maybe the spouse is going to continue as a silent partner and you'll end up running the business. Maybe you're okay with that. The important thing about any buy sell agreement, I'm going to touch on some other issues here as well. The important part is that you actually sit down and you write out what is going to happen. You want these things to be in writing because you may find that you have assumptions about how things are going to happen. But if you're working with a partner, you really need to spell out what each other's expectations are. Don't assume you understand how your partner feels or thinks about this. Put it in writing. So if the day ever happens, then you've got something you can fall back on and say, this is what we agreed to do. So that's one thing to think about. You need to think about what's going to happen if one of the partners becomes disabled or passes away. And usually it's going to be some kind of insurance that's going to help with that. Otherwise, you just have to be sitting on a pile of cash in order to buy your partner's spouse out of the business. The other thing to think about, though, is what's going to happen if the two of you have a falling out, if you have a disagreement and you decide you need to part ways. How are you going to buy out your partner in the business? This is another thing you really need to sit down and spell out in your agreement. Do this while you are still friends, because if you try to have this negotiation after you have a disagreement, you're no longer getting along with each other, it's going to be so much more difficult to do at that time. Think about this like a prenuptial for getting into business, really is kind of what this comes down to. So those are some reasons why you will need a buy sell agreement. So then what is a buy sell agreement? This is really just a document between the two of you. It becomes sort of a formal document in the business. Certainly you should sign it, date it, but it should spell out the rules and procedures and the agreements that you have in place for when a partner wants to leave or needs to leave. It should spell out who is allowed to buy the departing owner's portion of the business. It should spell out how you will determine the value of that portion of the business, and then what's going to happen after that partner leaves. So that's something that you need to think about. Really just sit down and spell that out. This is something that you should probably sit down with a lawyer, have a lawyer take a look at this and help you come up with some ideas. I can certainly give you ideas. I can talk you through some of the issues. Hey, but it's really a good idea to make sure that there's a lawyer involved, and that everything is in place and they think through all the issues that could come up. They'll come up with some things that I wouldn't have thought of. So I can certainly give you ideas, but I definitely do not feel qualified to consult in this area. Do speak with a business lawyer about this. I can certainly make a couple recommendations if you'd like me to, but yeah, this is something that I don't get involved in. It does come up sometimes in the brokerage. We're looking at an offer to purchase right now. Things are still on the table, still negotiating back and forth. But the seller has offered to stay on at the business and help out a little bit, and the buyer has some interest in helping that to happen, and so they're determining what portion of the business the buyer is actually going to buy, which means they will end up being partners, and I have counseled both of them. This means a partnership agreement and you need to get a lawyer involved. So with that, I got to stop there. I can't go into any details, of course, because everything is confidential. So with that, have